Julia and welcome back to my channel. I have been working on a new template, a new pattern. I have this available in my Etsy store and it's called Coffee or Tea Please, and it's all based on a favorite recipe that I found, and I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that recipe. So I'm going to be doing a project based around that recipe, and this is going to be a fabric covered journal, but you can use the template for anything. And also I'm going to be sharing a second project and some photos at the end, and also it also included some general instructions for that second project, it also included in the packet. The two different templates that I'm going to be using is the tea and the coffee design. The coffee design is fun. It does have like a cutout in the handle that is also incorporated into the steam. So just kind of a fun little design. I do have these available in the packet in two different sizes. If you want to use a larger size for a quilt, I use a little wall hanging quilts for my second project. I use the smaller coffee cup for the journal cover. So you'll see both of those. And I also included the actual recipe that I scanned and used in here, so you can try out my grandma's famous molasses cookies if you want. So I hope you enjoy this. Like I said, I'm going to have that link down below for you if any of you are interested. In the packet you do get the supplies that you need and the cutting instructions. Most of the instructions are based on the project that we're working on today, which is the fabric covered journal, but also some general instructions on the bonus project, which is the little mini wall hanging. Really cute also for a table topper, since it's kind of themed around coffee and cookies. Two, you can put it on an apron, I think would be a wonderful idea. A pillow top, just, you know, anything that you want to add the applique to. I hope you enjoy this. Let's get started. I have been going through and cleaning out some of my kitchen things, and I came across this recipe. This is my grandmother's molasses cookie recipe. And I thought it would be fun to create a couple projects maybe around this type of a thing. Maybe I'll give you some ideas too if you have a favorite family recipe. A little bit about my family. My ancestors came from Germany, and our cookies are spicy. I don't know how else to describe them. They're just a little bit different from, I married a Norwegian, so definitely different from the cookies that he grew up with. A lot of spices, like I mentioned, molasses and cloves and anise, and just a different taste cookie. And we also dunked our cookies in coffee. That was the big thing. And so this recipe, just like I mentioned, sparked a lot of memories, because we used to go to my grandma's after church or before church, and she always had a cookie like this, or you know, this cookie or something similar, and we would have coffee. Not the kids, but the parents would all just be dunking these cookies. And so anyway, I wanted to scan this first of all and print it onto fabric, and then let's see what happens. Now I've already scanned my recipe into my computer, and I want to print it onto fabric. And I just have a natural colored muslin, 100% cotton here. And when I do my printing, I like to just back my fabric with my labels, my shipping labels. These are what I use in my Etsy store, so I have them. You can also use like freezer paper. You can iron that on the back. You just need a little something to get this fabric through your printer. So I just peel these off, and I already have this cut at the 8.5. And so I'm just going to lay these on. Now these can be used over again. I'll just stick them back onto this piece of paper and keep them, and I can use them probably 3 or 4 times before I have to throw them out and use new ones. And now I'm just going to take this to my printer and print my little recipe card. Okay, I did get them printed off. I decided on doing 2 of them, thinking maybe I'm going to do a pillow and also a wall hanging. And I wanted to also mention that when I scan these, I scan them in color at 300 DPIs. And I also, when I printed them in color because I really wanted that old card, and I wanted it has some staining on it, and I just thought it looked really cool. I'm going to use my pinking shears to cut these out, and then it should be ready to go. I did decide to make one of my fabric covered journals. I'm going to be using the coffee applique. Now I use a double-sided Peltex, which is a really heavy interfacing, but use what you have. If you don't have something quite this heavy, it'll be just fine for this project. This is cut at 8.5 by 11, and I do round the corners. This is going to fit a traveler's size or standard size notebook if you want, and you can purchase those inserts. That's one of the reasons why I like this, just the dimension of a notebook. So it is cut at 8.5 by 11. You're also going to need an outer fabric that's cut slightly bigger. This is cut at 9.5 by 12. So about a 1/2 inch on both sides, or an inch wider and longer. Now you can notice this is just a natural colored muslin that I'm using, and I did dye it in coffee. I just thought that would add to the whole overall look of the coffee theme. Just put it in some coffee, leftover coffee that I had, and just threw it in the wash and then the dryer, and it just kind of stained it and made it real interesting. You're also going to want a piece of Warm and Natural or any kind of thin fleece or batting. This is just a quilter's batting. And that's cut the same. That's cut at the 9.5 by 12. And then for the inside of the journal, you're going to also want a piece cut that same, which is the 9.5 by 12. And then I also always add a pocket. And now this pocket will be folded, so it's going to kind of look like this. And that pocket is cut a little bit shorter. I believe that is also cut at like the 8.5 going this way, and this way the width is the same, which is the 12 inches. I'm going to have all these down below the description of this video, all the cut pieces, so you just easier to reference for you. Some of the other things you're going to need is just some scraps for the applique. I'm going to be doing this rosy kind of theme with the brown. And then I don't know what I'm going to exactly do yet, but I do have some just interesting trims here and vintage. I think this was an old, I don't know, possibly a table runner or something. Just have a scrap of it left. Also, I do use an elastic cord to hold my pages. You'll need some of that. I'm going to be using an iron-on adhesive. I use the Heat and Bond Light, and this is for the applique. Of course, you're going to want the little, your little recipe. And I do have some other trims here. And of course, oops, this is the one I'm going to be using. I think that's about it. Of course, scissors and all that good stuff too. And we're going to start building our appliques. And I have my Heat and Bond Light, and I'm just, with the paper side up, just tracing this pattern. Now everything is already switched for you, or the orientation is already been flipped, so I can just trace them right off the paper. Then ironing those onto the back side of my fabrics, and then rough cutting them out, and then I will be cutting right on the line after everything is ironed on. I'm going to just share this handle with you on this piece because we will be cutting that heart out and trying not to wreck it. So I'm just poking my needle or my scissor through that, and we'll be cutting right on the line. And like I said previously, this heart will be used as part of the steam in this design. I have my outer piece with the batting on the bottom now, or the outer piece is laying on top of the batting. I folded the little booklet just so I could kind of see where the center front would be, and I'm just laying my pieces on. Decided to put that yo-yo, and that yo-yo was so big that I trimmed that top piece down a little on that mug. And I'm just going to be fiddling around just to see what I like the best. Realizing that recipe is a little bit big, and so that ended up on the back side of my journal, and you'll see it here in a second. This is a piece of hem lace that I picked up at a thrift store. I have it laying out flat now, and I just decided on putting that recipe and then adding some patches and some of that lace. Put a little bit of that motif or lace motif on top of that yo-yo as well. I'm using just a little bit of white glue to attach the things that do not have that heat and bond on. Just a little bit of it in the corners of the recipe there. And now I'm using my heat erase pens to draw the steam on. The heat erase pens are nice because they will come off when I get done stitching just with the iron. And now I'm going to take it to my sewing machine, and I'm going to be doing the free motion stitching. I have my feed dogs dropped, and this is my free motion foot. And so I'm doing all the movement on this. For this particular one, I have just a cream colored thread both on the top and the bottom. And I'm just going over this lace motif to laying it flat and just catching it all in with my stitching. And two with the yo-yo, notice that I'm just catching that yo-yo and I'm just going all the way around it. I did glue that lace motif on with a fabric tack glue. I did not sew that. I wanted to outline my coffee cup, my coffee mug in a brown, just to make it stand out a little. I'm doing this wonky stitch on the steam, just kind of going back and forth. And I usually go over my stitching twice, just finishing up that handle there. I do have my stitching done, and my appliques are all attached. Giving it one final press, and that will erase that heat erase pen. Now I'm going to attach that, or just iron on that interfacing on the back of my fleece. Now this is a Peltex, which is really heavy, and I don't think you're going to need that heavy of an interfacing for this, just because it has the fleece in it as well. So you can keep that in mind if you don't have the Peltex. Just put my pocket into place there. That pocket is folded. Putting some clips to hold everything together, and then stitching all the way around, leaving an opening. I do my stitching with my zipper foot, going really close to that interfacing, but not, I don't stitch through the interfacing, and I like to leave at least a scant 1/8 of an inch around. I don't want to go right next to it because I want enough room for when I turn this, that interfacing will lay flat. Trimming my corners, and then taking that through that opening. That opening's about 6 inches. And then taking my pokey tool, getting those corners all out, and then giving it one final press, pressing in that opening. And we'll be taking this to my sewing machine and just edge stitching this so that opening is closed, and it just forms a nice edge all the way around my little journal. It's stitching is done, it's on to my hole punching, just using a water-soluble pen here and marking 5 little holes inside the stitching. I don't want to punch through my stitching. And I do have a template in the packet where I place my holes and also how I do my cording. I'm using my crocodile to punch those holes. And then it's onto my sewing machine again, and I'm just going to stitch around each of these holes with free motion. I also go all the way down and also stitch right through that pocket to give that pocket 2 pockets. You know, it's basically stitched in the center. You can also use eyelets instead of doing the free motion there. That works just as well. My cording's about 40 inches long, and I'm going to tie a knot approximately in about 5 inches from that folded edge, and then poke those 2 right through that center. And then working on the inside, sticking it through the next hole and out and back through again. And then doing the same with the bottom. In the closest one and then back through the top one. And then I will tie that right in the center. I will trim that elastic and then slip that little booklet. I just created a booklet with a bunch of just old ledger paper and just different things, just different kinds of paper. And that completes my little book. I have some pictures at the end here. I hope you enjoyed this. It's just a fun little design with my grandma's famous molasses cookie recipe. And here's a couple pictures of the wall hanging using that same recipe, but I did it with the tea look. Found this wonderful patchwork fabric that was already done. I hope you enjoyed this, everybody. Bye for now.